In this video, we're going to talk about C pointers. So pointers are a very important topic in C, and we'll be using them a lot. So in this particular video, we're just going to do an overview to show you what happens when you declare pointer variables in C. And we'll actually do two separate examples. The first, we'll just talk about the variables themselves, and then in the second example, we'll actually see what happens in memory. So suppose I declare two variables, x and y, and I set them to 10 and 20 respectively. When I do this in code, C creates two variables for me. It allocates memory for them. It associates them with the name x and the type int, and then the values 10 gets filled in for x, and the value 20 gets filled in for y. So then I'm going to declare a pointer variable, and this is the syntax. This says that it's an integer pointer type. The name is pointer, and it's going to be equal to the address of s. This ampersand is the reference operator, which returns the address of the variable. So what that essentially does conceptually is now I have a new variable pointer, and that pointer is pointing to x. Now, not the value x, it's pointing to the memory location where the variable x is stored. So now, when I use the dereference pointer, and to be clear, the asterisks here mean different things. So here, this is indicating that this is an integer pointer. Here, this is what's called the dereference operator. It's the opposite of the reference operator. And what this says is, give me an alias of the memory location that pointer is pointing to. So pointer is pointing to x. So when we dereference it, pointer, we get an alias of x. When we assign 30 to that, that assigns 30 to x because we're using pointer to refer to this variable. Now, when I say pointer is equal to the address of y, that now means that pointer is pointing to y because it's holding the address of y. And we'll actually see what that looks like in memory a little later. And just like I did with x, I can change y by dereferencing pointer, assigning 40 to that result. And so this puts 40 into y. Okay, so in our second example, we'll actually look at memory. So here we have some memory, and you can see that each memory location has an address. This variable name doesn't actually get stored in memory. It's associated with the compiler, but I'm going to put the variable names out to the left just so that you can see what's being stored where. Now these addresses I completely made up, but you'll notice they are separated by 4. That's because there's 4 bytes in each of these groupings of bytes, and we call that a word, how wide this memory is. And usually whatever your word size is on your system, that's usually what the integer size is, but not always. So in this case, we're going to assume that we have 4 byte integers. So you can see that x occupies this space at index 92348. Also notice these are hexadecimal values. So now we're going to declare an integer pointer. I didn't assign it to anything. So just like with x, I now have an empty variable, but that variable is declared. And again, just like x, it's a variable. Pointers are variables, and it doesn't have a value. So I'm going to assign 40 to x. So now in memory, in the memory location where x is stored, there's 40. Then when I assign pointer to the address of x, notice the pointer variable is going to hold 92348, which happens to be the address of x, because that's what I assigned to the pointer. Now when I dereference the pointer, I get an alias of x because the pointer is pointing to x. I assign 50 to that, and so x becomes 50, because again, here I'm using this pointer to access x. So I'm going to create another variable y. It gets some memory up here, and I'll assign 25 to that. So now I'm going to say that pointer is equal to the address of y. So you'll notice now pointer is updated to be 92356, which is the address of y. Again, a pointer is a variable that holds an address. So when I assign the address of y to pointer, now pointer, the variable, holds the address of y. And just like I did with x, if I dereference pointer, now I get an alias to whatever pointer was pointing to, which in this case was y. So what that means is I'm going to change the value of y to 62. So that's a very brief introduction to pointers. There are a lot of videos on pointers out there, so make sure you watch those. There's a lot of tricky things that happen with pointers, and in this case, we're actually using integer pointers, which we don't use quite as much as we would use other types of pointers, particularly being pointers to arrays and pointers to structures. But the idea here is just to give you an idea of how the pointers work in our C program.